Video games have come a long way since their inception, ranging from 8-bit side-scrollers, first-person shooters, and those who can tell compelling stories. The problem is, as the medium matures and new technology emerges, video games are becoming more costly to produce, and as such it either forces developers to join an established conglomerate but risk their ideas being unfulfilled, or go independent to develop and publish their IP but have to work within the boundaries of a small budget. Ninja Theory, the same studio who made Heavenly Sword, Enslaved Odyssey to the West and Devil May Cry respectively, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice doesn't just bring a sensitive topic into an interactive medium, they're also confident they've made it with the qualities of a AAA IP but with half the price. I'm surprised it's received such positive reception because in my opinion I don't think Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice isn't as good compared to what the general consensus points it out to be. You play as Senua, a young Celtic warrior who suffers with psychosis, a mental illness that causes anxiety and hallucinations. Tormented by her partner's death Dylan, she heads into Helheim with his skull in order to be resurrected. Let's get the positives out of the way first. It's one thing to tell a compelling story, but it's another when it explores a serious subject. Unfortunately, some developers don't fully research the topic they want to convey, and as such they rely on cheap stereotypes. But what makes this IP fascinating is how it illustrates the difficulties of psychosis, as Ninja Theory cooperated with professionals that studied this illness, and even going so far by providing help for those who suffer from the real condition. Granted, my knowledge of psychosis is somewhat limited because I don't have this condition, but as someone with a disability, in my case I have Asperger's syndrome, which inhibits my ability to socialise and develop as an individual, I'm still able to provide information for your benefit, just like how Senua is able to conquer her inner thoughts. But having good character development can only do so much because solid voice acting is just as important, and thankfully the performances, combined with its motion capture and live action set pieces, are superb. I'm also impressed how the audio was recorded to create the illusion of dimension, since Ninja Theory utilised 3D binaural speakers. In fact, it's recommended you wear headphones to get the full immersion, and while they're not mandatory, it is an impressive effect. Not only these voices have their own personality, they assist Senua in combat because they let players know of incoming danger, considering the camera is placed behind her and there's no conventional health bar. What's done instead is the enemy's health is presented by wounds on their bodies, while Senua's vitals are shown by her ability to stay on her feet and how much the screen flashes red. Graphically, the game looks fantastic considering it's running on Unreal Engine 4. The frame rate on PS4 runs at 30 frames per second, but if you're playing on the Pro console you'll be getting double the frame rate. There's cool lighting and weather effects, and it's able to keep it all together without stuttering. Now this is the part where you'll grab your torches and pitchforks. The combat mainly consists of light and heavy attacks, blocking, dodging, parrying, and the ability to slow down time to inflict extra damage. Although these mechanics are functional, it became repetitive due to them being showcased early on, and it also doesn't help there's little enemy variety since what you face are humanoid. Add to the fact they are not smart since most enemies walk up to you. It would have been interesting if Ninja Theory added not only more enemy types, but different weapons that Senua could use for each adversary. And why does every engagement have to be in an open spaced area? I understand it's to allow mobility, yet at the same time it makes these encounters far too telegraphed. What could have been done instead is to have enemies on patrol and players can decide whether to engage or not depending on the situation. Alternatively, stealth sections could have been a welcome addition since the foes she faces are twice her size. Before I go any further, some of you may tell me the latter stages become challenging due to the high quantity of enemies, and to that I have to disagree with that argument. Just because Ninja Theory decided to make you face off the same foes over and over again, it doesn't mean it can be used as an excuse for incompetent game design, especially if the game's length averages 8 hours long. It's like saying The Witcher 3 has 5 enemies throughout its 50+ hour campaign, and everyone would abide to this because the sheer quantity would make the issue trivial. And don't bring up the argument that playing on hard alleviates these issues, because the truth is it doesn't significantly change their damage properties and their behaviour. The combat essentially boils down to waiting for an opening and then button mash your way to victory. Even the boss encounters fall victim to this tactic, as they are a huge sponge you hit until they perish, despite being more proactive in terms of their aggression. When Senua isn't spilling Viking blood, she's solving puzzles with her perception. These range finding shapes in the environment, passing through portals to an alternative dimension, or aligning objects from a certain position. There were a few moments that changed things up, such as navigating an entire level in pitch black, but the puzzles became repetitious. Combined with how easy they were to solve, since the game tells you whether you're close to a clue in addition to its linear level design, it's next to impossible to get lost or stuck. Now let's address the elephant in the room, specifically the permadeath controversy. Early in the game, you're presented with a message about the rot on Senua's arm, and would spread towards her head if she dies too many times, thus the game would end and would delete your save file. In reality, this is a hoax. Presumably, Ninja Theory wanted to enforce paranoia into players. While I think this was a clever way to make those connect to Senua's situation, sadly the general consensus thought this was a legit mechanic, and even gaming outlets like GameSpot and IGN bought into this false news. The rot does grow if you make a blunder, however depending on how far you progressed, it only reaches a certain point until the following set piece. No matter the difficulty and how many deaths occurred, players won't lose their progress and be forced to start all over again. Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice seems to lack replay value, as there's no alternative outfits or bonuses that will incentivize a second playthrough. The only reason you would do so is if you wish to find all the lore stones that you may have missed on the first pass, and if that's the case, be aware because the cutscenes, despite being superbly crafted, can't be skipped. With all that being said, Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice is one of those games that goes for style over substance. I give credit to Ninja Theory for researching and illustrating a serious condition, the fact they attempted to sell their product half the price without compromising quality, and the fact they are attempting to change how the industry operates with their practices is admirable. However, because there's more emphasis on the story and less on the gameplay, I feel like they were stretching their budget in order to classify it as a video game. Ninja Theory had an ambition, but it seems they made some sacrifices to achieve it.